It is my great pleasure to welcome Rev Judith Elia, who's going to speak to us Beyond Lunacy to Oneness, which each of us can do now to save ourselves and each other. Rev Judith Elia is an ordained unity minister who served diverse congregations for over 30 years. She's also a Florida licensed marriage and family therapist. From a young age, her fascination with the soul of psychology led her to train extensively with psychosocial historian and psychoanalyst Eric H. Erickson and family systems pioneer Virginia Satir. She has traveled widely to study with spiritual teachers from Cambodia, China, India, Tibet, and Turkey. She has organized conferences and events internationally for world peace, holistic medicine, and the spiritual unity of the world's religions. She is recently retired as the Senior Minister of Unity of Port Richey and served at the Tent of Nations and the Palestine Institute for Biodiversity and Sustainability in Bethlehem, occupied Palestine, from mid-May until July 22nd. Reverend Judith Elia, thank you for being with us today.
So I say in advance that this was a very difficult talk for me to put together because I just got back from Palestine and I am still processing through so much of what I experienced there. And I don't know any other congregation I could give this talk to. So I want to really honor you for being my uncensored congregation and ask for your forgiveness in advance if it doesn't pull together because there's so much to say about what's happening right now. So for 10 months, Palestinians and Israelis have lived through untold suffering, grief, sorrow, and loss. More than 2 million people in Gaza remain trapped in an endless nightmare of death and destruction on a staggering scale. Their lives are dominated by fear, thirst, hunger, disease, dehumanization, lack of basic sanitation, and repeated displacement with very little notice. It is relentless and a minute-by-minute struggle to survive. Famine, which is not a natural disaster, but a human-made one, is causing death by starvation as we watch children dying of starvation before our very eyes. Polio and other diseases are spreading. 625,000 traumatized children have lost their homes, schools, neighborhoods, friends, and families. And this is a small number. This is just the identified number. There are 17,000 identified orphans in the Gaza Strip that have no living relative left. And I'm sure that number is going to expand when we realize just how many thousands, hundreds of thousands of people are unidentified under the rubble. I gave myself this title, From Lunacy to Oneness, because I really feel like we're in the midst of a descent into madness, that Israel has become a lunatic state, and we're watching them express this to us. Just this week, there was a riot in an Israeli prison. How many of you have heard about this? It was a demonstration against arresting soldiers for raping and torturing prisoners. Now let me say that again. It was a protest for the right to rape and torture to the point of death a prisoner of war who died in Israeli jail. Many people, young men, children, women, and elders have been imprisoned, taken hostage over 9,000 after October 7th, without warrant or cause, and put in these dungeons to be held without trial and tortured in medieval ways, and some of them die in prison. This has been testified to over and over and over again for decades. It's not new. Israel leadership in the past few weeks has assassinated elected leaders, has killed peace negotiators in Lebanon and Iran. But this is not new. Actually, this is a pattern and a strategy since the beginning of the Zionist project, that Jewish supremacy and the state of Israel, if it kills the leaders, will kill the spirit of the masses, actually has the opposite effect, right? Has the absolute opposite effect, because these people become martyrs, they become heroes. So that is why I say that Israel is a lunatic state, because they keep doing the same thing that gets them the opposite results that they want, and they keep doing it. And that's the definition of insanity. How many of you know the story about the hole in the sidewalk? So it's a story my teacher, Virginia Satir, used to tell, like 40 years ago. But it's about lunacy, about how we are insane because we keep doing the same thing over and over again, and it keeps bringing us the opposite results, but we keep doing it. So she gave this metaphor that you walk down a street and there's a hole in the sidewalk and you fall in. And then you walk down the street and there's a hole in the sidewalk and you fall in. And then you walk down the street and you remember there's a hole in the sidewalk, but it's too late and you fall in. And then you walk down the sidewalk and you stop and you don't go in. And then finally, you go another way, right? That's sanity, going another way. I want to share with you a possibility of understanding Hamas. Not Hamas, the way we say it, but Hamas. The heart, Hamas. I haven't met anyone who identifies as Hamas, but I remember the first time I heard Ishmael Haniyeh speak, who was recently assassinated in Iran. He was the peace negotiator for Hamas, a widely respected human being who was once an elected official during the period when Hamas was elected to lead the people of Palestine to liberation. Here's a poem that I think expresses what I heard from him the first time I saw him speak. They searched his chest, but could only find his heart. They searched his heart, but could only find his people. So what I heard Ishmael Haniyeh say was the answer to a question by a very abrupt journalist on whether the death of his grandchildren and children would deter him in any way from advocating for Hamas. And what he said was, and I'm paraphrasing, it was so telling. He said, if the enemy thinks this will deter me, they are wrong. My family are not any more important than any other family. Every Palestinian and every human child And every person who has been murdered is a tragic loss. And he said something that I've heard over and over again in meeting Israelis and Palestinians who have suffered severe loss. I mean, Ishmael Hananiah has lost to targeted assassination over 60 of his relatives. And he said this, as many Israelis said, including a person who is a peace activist and the founder of the Abraham hostels throughout Israel. And his parents were killed on October 7th. And he said, now more than ever, I advocate for peace. My parents were peace activists. I talked to them right before they were killed. I don't know who killed them. Could have been Israeli fire, and could have been snipers from Hamas. And I don't care, because I am committed to living peace in their honor. And that's what Hananiah said as well. He said, I'm committed to working towards a ceasefire and a negotiated lasting peace. And they killed him in Iran, in his guest house, as a guest of Iran during a time when it was a time of celebration of a new president. Born in Gaza, the son of Nakba survivors forced from their homes, a brilliant child raised in a refugee camp in Gaza, attained notoriety in Gaza for his brilliance, for his poetry, for his writings. And he graduated with a BA in Arabic literature from the Islamic University in Gaza in 1987, a time when there was an intifada, an uprising. And like many college students, he was all about that. He was raised in occupation, and he was part of that. And he was arrested 3 times and imprisoned, which the media called a short period of time, from 1987 to 1992 for peaceful protest. That's what they consider a short period of time. He was exiled then to Lebanon, returning to become the dean of Gaza's Islamic University, a charismatic educator. He was appointed to head the political division of Hamas, to be their representative to the world, which he did well. He openly represented them as their head peace negotiator and was regarded by many diplomats as one of the more pragmatic and moderate figures until his assassination. This week, Israel also bombed schools, committed tent massacres, and assassinated the senior Hezbollah commander, Fouad Shakur, in Lebanon. Desolation, destruction, murder of children at point-blank range. And I share that with you because doctors were so shocked at the amount of children that were killed at point-blank range that they had to do autopsies. They had to look at the x-rays. They just couldn't believe it. This one doctor who worked for Doctors Without Borders all the time and has been to many, many war zones said he has never, ever seen that. It can't be a mistake to shoot a child twice at point-blank range. The demolition of homes, not just in Gaza, but throughout the West Bank. The demolition of schools, not just in Gaza, but in the West Bank. The demolition of hospitals, universities, entire neighborhoods, and the wiping out of entire lineages of human families. This is the legacy of Israel and the United States, whose names, our name, made in the USA, is on those bombs, on the cluster bombs that are illegal. And we are complicit in the spreading of white sulfur, which is a heinous crime against humanity. There are so many things that I could tell you about living in apartheid. Not being able to travel, being considered a secondary citizen with not the same rights as the occupier, being subjected to the turning off of water, electricity, internet, anything, because they have guns and you don't. That's basically what military occupation is, because it's illegal for Palestinians to have guns. That's why we call them terrorists, quote unquote, because they're trying to defend themselves. I want to share with you, although I know we don't need it, a biblical text from the Jewish tradition against collective punishment. Because we hear it a lot, you know, that the reason that Israel went in and abducted 9,000 Palestinians and put them in jail is for collective punishment. You know, they take 200 people hostages, we take 9,000 people hostage. They are taking into you know, their control a couple hundred of our citizens and possibly killing up to 1,000, although that's questionable because of the Hannibal Directive, which Israeli soldiers kill. They have a direct to kill anyone that's taking anyone hostage. So it could be that a lot of those people were killed by Israeli fire. But nonetheless, this idea of collective punishment is, you've done this, so we're going to kill you. 30,000 identified so far is not enough. The numbers probably are more like 200,000 because of all of the people that are still dead under the rubble. Is that enough? But collective punishment is not a Jewish tradition. When Jesus was asked if he would be given a sign, to the hypocrites and blind guides, to the Pharisees and the Sadducees who were always asking for a sign, he said, the only sign I'll ever give you is the sign of Jonah. And Jonah is the book that speaks to collective punishment, because Jonah was the one, you know, who just wouldn't even go to Nineveh, which is modern day Iraq, because those horrible, terrible, no good, very bad people just needed to die. But you know the story. You know, he got thrown overboard in the belly of the whale, decided to, you know, pray. God spit him out, and he finally did go to Nineveh. And the people of Iraq, they were wanting to be forgiven. They were wanting to change their ways. And so they put the sackcloth on, and they put the ashes on their forehead, and they asked for forgiveness, and God forgave. And the message of the book is, you know, Jonah was waiting for God to blow up Nineveh. You know, he was sitting on the top of the mountain waiting for the shock and awe campaign. And God did not do it. And so he wanted to die because he felt that revenge was the most important thing. And God said this. Just to give you the backstory, you know, God felt sorry for Jonah, so he put a little bush over his head. But then when Jonah was still acting like such a petulant child, wanting all of Nineveh to die, he sent a worm to spite the, you know, the bush. So Jonah was suicidal over the loss of a bush. And God said, Jonah, you're concerned about a bush for which you did not labor and which you did not grow. It came into being in a night and perished in a night. And should I not be concerned about Nineveh, that great city, in which there are thousands of people and so many animals? I know you don't need biblical texts to know that happiness does not come from bowing to authority or endlessly trying to destroy that which you fear. We don't need any more information to know that fear, shame, guilt, and poverty in the name of Jews or Jesus or anyone does not end suffering. Any religion based on hatred, violence, and oppression will not lead us to fulfilling meaningful lives. Any government engaging in the kind of medieval behavior as Israel needs to be stopped. Our government, our taxpayers' money, is supporting a genocide. How can we stop it? What can we do? In so many ways, the Unitarian Universalists are leading the way in acting, in affirming our commitment to freedom, justice, and equality for Palestinians and all people, and to opposing all forms of racism, bigotry, discrimination, and oppression, and declaring we are against apartheid. And to that end, my prayer is that we would join with others and work and support in ending our country's alignment with this destructive, psychopathic regime and ending what is called settler colonialism and military occupation. For our species to survive, if we are to find meaning in life, if we want to truly live in alignment with a moral universe, if we care about the inhabitants of the earth, cultivating love is the answer. Perhaps we're not yet ready to build bombs of love, a device powerful enough to entirely destroy hate, selfishness, greed, hypocrisy that are devastating this planet. However, each one of us carry a spark of that powerful love in a holographic universe. And I believe that we are powerful generators of light, whose energy is waiting to be released and is unstoppable. America is a young country. And if I'm to believe Elder Oren Lyons of the Iroquois Nation, it began thousands and thousands of years ago, not just hundreds of years ago, and has been working towards understanding democracy ever since. Democracy has to be taught, believed, and acted upon. And it starts with love, with my desire to not kill anyone, with my desire to not return hate for hate, with my love being so strong that I care about everyone, like Ishmael said, because every child is as important as every other child in this world. So I asked Beth if we could do a oneness prayer, and I looked at several of them, and I had to write my own because I just didn't believe what a lot of them said. And it's a time for me really of deeply trying to understand what I do believe. And I do believe that thoughts held in mind reproduce after their kind and form tracks in our brain that make it easier for us to think this way again. And that's what I think some of the problem is, that people have been propagandized to hate and to see other people as the enemy. So I want us to pray this oneness prayer and to get our brains synchronized to healing, forgiveness, and love. So will you do this with me? Okay. So slowly, this is an affirmative prayer. You know, you kind of fake it till you make it. You might not believe everything that's in the prayer, but it's an affirmation. Together, there is only one life. This life is good. This life is God, Goddess, infinite love. I align with this energy of love now. I ask for forgiveness of myself and everyone else for being out of alignment with love. Take a deep breath. This life is my life now. I'm a co-creator with God, Goddess, infinite love, and a holographic universe. I cast out fear and feel love for humanity and all beings who share this living earth with me. Again, take a deep breath. In knowing that I am one with the life that is good, God, that word God comes from the German word good, I therefore know that I am one with each and every expression of this divine and sacred life, which includes, so you can put someone in there or some place in there that you might be out of alignment with. This includes Israel. I tell people the hardest thing for being in Palestine and watching a daily atrocity happen to the Palestinians was not hating Israel as a collective body, right? Working on not being against them, but seeing evolution in them and seeing what's coming up as healing. So I'm putting Israel in there. You can put anything that you're against in there. Because I know that one life of God, good, Goddess love, cannot be against itself. I therefore know that I can't truly be against Israel, nor can I believe that it can be against me. Together in the perfect wholeness of the one life that is good, Israel, Palestine, Sudan, Afghanistan, the United States of America, Russia, and I can only be a fuller and greater expression of our own true nature, which is love. I believe in the evolution of all life. I believe the expansion of good, God, Goddess is happening even now. And out of the self-giving nature of love, I affirm and pray for harmonious interaction, perfect peace, and freedom for all. I give thanks for the presence of this war in my life and all that is being revealed to me. For by this presence, I have been shown a part of myself that I have yet to love. And I know that anything that is unlike divine love is not eternal and can be cast out right here and right now. I continue to be guided and directed, healed and blessed. And it is in this awareness of oneness that I give thanks to the glory of God, Goddess, love in this moment, and for the healing power and presence of love in my life. I'm grateful. Amen. And so it is. And we have copies of that prayer for you, and also 76 things you can do to help by Mazen Qumsiyeh on the back table. And we also have links for them for those of you that are online. So there's a lot of things that you can do. Also, if you go to the Unitarian Universalist website, you'll also see that there are suggestions for education and Palestine teach-ins and suggestions for ways that you can act with other groups that are doing wonderful, daily, persistent, consistent, peaceful protests and actions. So thank you for having me.